My husband promised me forever, but at his funeral, a little girl appeared, and everything I believed was a lie. He had a second family and his secrets left me speechless. They left me alone in the cold chapel, surrounded by people pretending to care, and I thought I knew everything about the man I married. If you're still watching this, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I thought I knew his heart, his past, his promises, until the moment they brought out the coffin, and whispers started floating through the crowd like poison. My name is Evelyn and I had spent 10 years building a life with my husband, Michael. 10 years of love, laughter and quiet sacrifices that I thought he cherished. I thought I was his only world, the center of his universe, the mother of his children. But as the priest began the service, a woman stepped forward with a small girl clinging to her side, and suddenly the truth hit me like a bullet I didn't see coming. Michael had a secret. A daughter I had never known existed, a life he had hidden from me, a second family that had been living in the shadows while I gave him everything. I remember standing there, frozen, my heart pounding, my hands trembling, and a single thought looping in my mind. How could I have been so blind? As I sat there, staring at the small girl clinging to the stranger beside her, a part of me wanted to scream, to throw the flowers at Michael's coffin and demand answers, but another part of me felt frozen, trapped by shock and disbelief, because nothing about him had prepared me for this moment, nothing at all. The whispers grew louder, slicing through the silence of the chapel like knives. People I had known for years were glancing at each other, some smiling in that way that hides secrets, others frowning as if they too were waiting for me to crumble. I noticed Aunt Lorraine, the woman who had always acted so kind to me, tightening her lips and exchanging a look with my mother, a look I couldn't understand, and a shiver ran down my spine because suddenly everyone seemed like they were in on something I wasn't. I thought back to small details I had brushed off over the years, moments that now felt like pieces of a puzzle I had refused to see. The mysterious calls Michael took late at night, the weekends he needed to travel for work, but never explained, the times he disappeared for hours without warning, always coming back with that smug little smile that used to charm me, but now it felt like it was hiding something, and I realized with a sinking heart that I had been blind to the patterns that were right in front of me. And then there was the woman, the one holding his daughter, walking toward the front with that quiet confidence, like she had rehearsed this moment for years, like she had planned every step, and my stomach twisted because I suddenly understood. Michael hadn't just hidden a mistake, he had hidden a whole life, a life I had no part in, a life he wanted me never to know existed, and I hated him in that instant, hated myself for not seeing the signs, hated the world for putting me in this position, hated everyone who had known and said nothing. The girl's eyes met mine for a brief second, and I saw a flicker of fear, of confusion, of longing, and it cut through me deeper than anything else, because even in her innocence, I sensed the weight of Michael's deception, and I wanted to gather her in my arms, but at the same time, I wanted to shake her mother until she told me every truth she had kept hidden. As the priest continued speaking, my mind raced. I remembered the will Michael had left, something I had been told not to worry about, something I had trusted blindly, and now I wondered if it was all another lie, another way to control me even after he was gone. I thought about his brother who had always been too charming, too attentive, the way he lingered around, offering condolences that felt rehearsed, and I questioned whether he had known about the second family, whether he had helped cover it up, and I realized that my life, my marriage, my entire sense of security, had been built on a foundation of lies so deep I could hardly breathe. People were whispering again, and I could hear snatches of conversation that made my head spin. She always suspected nothing. He was very careful. No one could have imagined. And every word was like a hammer striking my chest, every sentence a reminder that I had been deceived, manipulated, and left in the dark while Michael's other life thrived in secrecy. And just when I thought I had reached the bottom of my shock, a hand touched my shoulder. I turned slowly to see my own mother, her eyes glistening with something I couldn't read, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Evelyn, there's more you need to know." And I realized in that instant that this wasn't just about Michael or his daughter. There were family secrets buried beneath secrets, hidden motives that had nothing to do with me directly but everything to do with how my life had been shaped. And suddenly the world I thought I knew had shattered, leaving me in pieces I didn't know how to pick up. Every face in the room now seemed like a mask, every smile a lie, every glance hiding something I wasn't supposed to see yet, and my heart screamed for answers I wasn't ready to hear, because the more I dug into the shadows of Michael's life, the more I realized that betrayal wasn't just a moment. It was a lifetime, a web of secrets stretching further than I could imagine, and I had been living at the center of it, blind to the danger, blind to the lies, blind to the truth that was about to destroy everything I thought I had. I couldn't breathe as my mother's words sank in, the air around me feeling heavier with every heartbeat, and then she spoke again, slower this time, her voice trembling like it carried the weight of 1,000 secrets. Evelyn, Michael wasn't the man you thought he was. The daughter you see, she is not the only one. My head snapped toward the woman holding the little girl, her eyes wide but cautious, like she had rehearsed every reaction I might have, and suddenly the whispers in the chapel weren't whispers anymore. They were screams I could feel in my bones. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what my mother had just said, because every memory of Michael now seemed tainted, every smile, every promise, every quiet night we had shared, suddenly coated in a layer of deceit I couldn't scrape off. He had lied to me, lied in ways I hadn't even imagined, and now I saw the pieces falling apart like shards of glass around my feet, cutting me with every thought of betrayal. And then it came, the first whisper of a secret I had never suspected. Michael had another woman, someone I had never known existed, someone who had shared his life while I believed I had it all. The woman standing before me, calm and composed, wasn't just the mother of his daughter. She was a partner in a life he had hidden from me for years, a life he had nurtured in silence while I poured my soul into him. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to throw every accusation at him even though he was gone, but the words wouldn't come. My chest tightened as the crowd seemed to blur, faces merging into one mass of judgment and pity, and I realized that in the middle of all this grief, all this loss, I had been cheated of more than love. I had been cheated of trust, of truth, of the life I thought I knew. And as my mother took a deep breath, her eyes darting toward the back of the chapel, she whispered the words that made my heart stop. Evelyn, there's more. Michael's other family, you don't even know what they want from you. My hands shook, my stomach twisted, and a cold realization spread through me like ice. This wasn't just betrayal, this wasn't just lies. This was a carefully constructed world I had never been part of, a life he had hidden with precision. And now, even in death, Michael's secrets were controlling me, shaping the way I would see my own life from this moment forward. I felt the little girl's eyes on me again, innocent and trusting, and something inside me cracked, because even in her presence, I knew she was a part of a life that had been stolen from me, a life that Michael had built without me, a life that had forced me into grief and suspicion and 1,000 questions I didn't know if I wanted answers to yet. And as I sat there, surrounded by faces that once seemed familiar but now looked like strangers, I realized the truth I had been avoiding all these years. I didn't just lose my husband, I had lost the story I thought I was living, and I was standing at the edge of a world full of secrets that were about to drown me if I wasn't careful. After the service ended, the crowd slowly dispersed, but I didn't move. My hands were still trembling, my mind a storm of anger, confusion, and disbelief. I could feel the little girl staring at me, and I knew that look wasn't just curiosity. It was fear, the kind only children of secrets carry, and I couldn't let it go. I followed her mother to a quiet corner of the chapel. She didn't speak at first, just held the girl tightly, her lips pressed together like she was weighing every word she could say. Finally, she whispered, Evelyn, you need to know everything. Michael, he wasn't just a father to her. He had others before, others you don't know about. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. Others? I asked, my voice barely more than a rasp, and in her silence I understood. Michael had been living a life I hadn't imagined, a life carefully hidden from me while I thought I was his world. When I confronted my own family later, the cracks started showing. My mother's eyes, usually warm and gentle, were sharp and distant, full of regret and something else I couldn't name. Evelyn, she said, we never told you because we thought you'd be safe if you didn't know. But you weren't supposed to find out like this. Safe? Safe from what? I wanted to scream, to slap someone, to demand the truth, but instead I swallowed and asked, what are you hiding? How much did he take from me? Her answer came in fragments, hesitant and shaky. Michael, he made promises to many. He wasn't faithful. He manipulated people. Some of it, it's worse than you know. Worse than I know. That phrase burned in my chest. I realized then that my marriage, my life, even the years I had spent believing in love, were built on deception so deep I could barely recognize the man I thought I knew. And then there was the letter. A thin envelope tucked in Michael's study, one I hadn't been allowed to see before. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were documents, photos, names, numbers, all pointing to another world Michael had constructed. Another family, secret accounts, hidden properties, and whispers of promises he had made to people I didn't even know existed. I felt sick, my knees weakening, and I knew then that this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about power, control, and lies that had been layered carefully for years. Every person I trusted, every word I believed was now suspect. My mother had secrets. Michael's other family had secrets. And I had to unravel them because staying in ignorance wasn't an option anymore. But as I looked at the little girl again, her eyes wide and innocent, I realized something terrifying. Whatever Michael had done, his lies had consequences that were only beginning. And now, I was in the middle of it whether I wanted to be or not. And deep down, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't trust anyone, not fully, not yet, and the next move I made would change everything. For me, for the child, and for the second life Michael had left behind. I knew I couldn't sit back and pretend this wasn't happening. Every instinct in me screamed that I needed answers, that I needed to face the people Michael had built this hidden life with, even if it destroyed everything I thought I knew about him, about us, about myself. The next day I found myself standing at the doorstep of the house where the little girl and her mother lived. My hand shook as I rang the bell, the air thick with tension, the sky gray as if the world itself knew the storm that was about to erupt. When the door opened, their eyes met mine, calm, guarded, almost taunting. And I realized instantly that they had expected me, had rehearsed this encounter in their minds just as Michael had rehearsed his lies for years. "I'm Evelyn," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to understand." The woman's lips curved slightly, almost a smile, almost a challenge. "Understand what?" she asked. "That your husband wasn't who you thought he was? That he had a life you were never part of?" Her words cut deeper than I expected. The little girl clung to her side, but her eyes were curious, searching, almost pleading, and I felt my anger clash with my heart. I wanted to reach out, to take her hand, to comfort her for something she had done nothing to deserve. But I couldn't, not yet. As I stepped inside, I noticed the photos on the wall, the laughter frozen in frames, the quiet comfort of a home I had never seen Michael provide, and my chest tightened. Every image, every object, every corner of this house screamed betrayal. Michael had loved them, had lived for them, while I had poured my life into a man who existed as a stranger to me. The woman finally spoke again, softer this time, almost pitying. "Michael wanted to protect you," she said. "Or maybe he just wanted to control what you saw. Either way, you were never meant to find out. Some things are better left buried." Her words sent a chill down my spine. Protect me? Control me? The line between love and manipulation had blurred so thoroughly that I couldn't even see where one ended and the other began. And then the confession that made my blood run cold. "He wasn't the only one in his life," she whispered. "There are others. Things he did, promises he broke, people who suffered because of him. You're not the only one asking questions." My stomach twisted. Others? Suffering? Every betrayal, every lie, every secret I had already uncovered suddenly felt like the tip of an iceberg, and I realized that Michael's death had not ended his control over me. It had only unleashed a labyrinth of deceit that I was trapped inside. And as I left that house, the little girl waving reluctantly, I understood one terrifying truth. Michael had built a world of lies, but I was no longer blind. I could see the patterns, the hidden motives, the shadows he left behind, and I knew that unraveling them would cost me everything. But if I didn't, his secrets would continue to shape my life, my grief, my anger, and my future in ways I couldn't survive. And somewhere deep in me, a cold fire began to burn. Not just for answers, but for justice, for truth, for exposing every lie, every hidden family, every betrayal that Michael had thought would stay in the shadows forever. I couldn't sleep that night. Michael's lies haunted me, echoing through every memory, every promise, every tender moment I had believed in. But as the dark hours dragged on, a decision crystallized in my mind. I would no longer be a victim of his secrets. If Michael had a second family, hidden lives, and broken promises, then I would uncover it all, expose it all, and reclaim my life from the shadows he had left behind. The next day I started quietly, asking questions, following leads, piecing together the fragments of a life he thought I would never see. I discovered bank accounts, property deeds, messages, every trace of the other lives he had built. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. He had planned to leave everything to them if I hadn't discovered the truth. Every sacrifice I had made, every tear, every dream we shared, he had intended to erase it as if I had never existed. But I wasn't powerless anymore. I called my lawyer, confronted my mother, and even spoke to the woman with the little girl. Slowly, carefully, I exposed every lie, holding nothing back, and watched as their carefully constructed world began to crack under the weight of truth. The little girl didn't understand, but she didn't need to yet. I was here for her, but on my terms. I would protect her from the deceit Michael had sown while claiming my own life back. When the family gathered again, all the whispers, all the hidden agendas, I stood in the center of the room and spoke. Every word cut through the silence like a blade, every accusation precise, every betrayal named. Faces fell. People tried to deny it, to twist it, but I had proof, evidence, and the fire in me no one could ignore. And in that moment, a strange calm settled over me. Michael had tried to control the narrative even in death, but I had taken it back. I realized that the pain, the betrayal, and the anger I had carried were no longer chains. They were fuel. Fuel to rise above the deception, to reclaim my dignity, and to build a life where no one could manipulate or hide anything from me again. The little girl looked at me that day, eyes wide, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Not fear, but recognition, a connection forming in the cracks of deceit. I reached out, and for the first time since Michael's secrets were revealed, I felt a flicker of peace. I wasn't just surviving his lies anymore. I was taking control, and nothing he had hidden could touch me now. Michael had left me with betrayal, with heartbreak, with a family I didn't know existed, but he hadn't left me powerless. And as I walked away from that house, leaving whispers and secrets behind, I knew one thing clearly. I would never be blind again, and no one would ever control my life or my heart again. Even those closest to you can have secrets. Trust, but stay observant. Life isn't always what it seems. Sometimes heartbreak doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you've given your heart to. Always value your instincts. Family or friends who know the truth but stay silent can be just as damaging as the one who lies. Speak up, protect yourself, and don't ignore red flags. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories.